You found the skeleton. How would you tell it's a dinosaur? You personally, how would you decide?
Well, interesting question. I don't know. I'd have to do some research on this.
All right, everybody, we are here for the Kent Hovind Science Side Up after show, and this was, I believe the link in the description for the original debate still works, but I don't know. Who knows with that debate? It's been rescheduled how many times?
This was our third attempt. Try 3, and it almost didn't happen.
I was expecting it not to.
So annoyed.
Look, the reason I premiered during it is because I expected it not to happen. I was like, I'm not changing it. I don't care. Kent Hovind isn't reliable enough for me to change my plans to suit him.
Yeah.
But then it did happen, and instead of paying as much attention as perhaps I should have during my premiere, I was trying to listen to the debate. But then Kent Hovind started to annoy me, so I started doing some Duolingo. And on the bright side, I'm #1 in the Pearl League.
Nice.
So,
Question. If you've been doing Duolingo, does my weird owl stress ball freak you out?
only a little.
Okay.
Can you say a sentence in Klingon for us that we won't understand?
T Lane, I do that all the time.
We'll do it anyways.
No, we're here to talk about Kent Hovind, not Klingon. Besides, I was actually mostly doing Arabic.
Oh, fair.
Yeah, I actively practice like Arabic, French, Latin, and Klingon on Duolingo. So,
do you think Kent knows the difference?
He knows what Latin is. I don't know if he could differentiate it from any other romance languages. I don't think he knows anything about Arabic, and I doubt he's even heard of Klingon. He seems like a very boring person.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, if it was colder, it's been cold here. I have my favorite Star Trek deep cut sweatshirt next to me.
Oh, Benny, did you know that I have a video about that episode?
What? Oh
yeah,
my goodness.
It's all about the linguistics involved in the Tamarian language. Or rather,
I want to
linguistics.
make Dr. Josh watch it really bad. I want to know if that's an accurate storytelling of Gilgamesh.
Oh, I mean, I've read Gilgamesh, and it's as much as you can make like a 4-sentence summary of Gilgamesh.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things that's like, is that an accurate summary of Gilgamesh? I mean, it's like, well, you can only do so much in 4 sentences where you're not even allowed to use verbs. So
yeah, that's fair.
It's like it's actually like 4 noun phrases. How accurate can you possibly be? But I mean, it does broadly have a thing. You know, like there's Gilgamesh at Uruk. He's kind of a dick. He meets Enki. Yeah. They become friends. They go to the forest. They fight a monster. Enki dies. There you go. That's a whole bit. That's a whole part of it. I do have a video on that. But so I want to ask, what did everyone think of the debate? And we will start with Maddie because she's first up on this panel.
Okay. Not as painful as Nathan Thompson.
Mm-hmm. That's fair. I feel like this is a big butt.
The amount of insanity that can come out of that man's mouth. And just nonsense, and just trying to live action piece through. Okay, what are you saying? Is it related to the what question I just asked you? And then like, oh no, we're just going straight to Josephus, right? Like, oh gosh, no, bring it back.
Yeah, that was strange. Also, he said the book of Josephus. I'm pretty sure Josephus wrote more than one work.
So
Yeah.
things I am happy with. One, I'm happy that I got him to acknowledge that like there's no physical process that could make his magical ice dome, right? Because I personally find trouble arguing but it's magic, so it could do that, right? I'm just like I don't know how to debate that, if that makes sense.
Well,
right?
I think ultimately you can't debate it on an evidential ground. You just have to say, well, okay, but there are philosophical problems with letting science or with letting magic as the explanation in science, in that you can't go anywhere with that. It doesn't give you any predictions.
Right.
It doesn't. There's no way to falsify it. You can't do anything with it.
Are we just going to ignore that Kent thought that maglev was why that ice dome was held up?
Yeah, magnet.
Oh, yeah,
I
magnet.
don't.
I think Kent is an honorary member of the Insane Clown Posse now, because magnets, how do they work, right?
How do they work, guys? And like the difference between top of atmosphere equilibrium temperature and the fact that that is what, if you had some solid dome, that's what that would be, versus like when we have an atmosphere that there's no hard line between the atmosphere and space, right? That was sorry, this is me. Like that was like the point that my brain couldn't catch up to, because I was like, what are you saying? And I was like, oh crap, after the debate my brain like caught up to reality. I was like, that's radiative equilibrium temperature is measured at the top of the atmosphere. If you have a solid boundary of that represents your top of the atmosphere, then that's going to be what's in radiative equilibrium with the sun, right?
Yeah.
If you have an atmosphere like ours that has a gradient, right? And then he starts talking about like what the consequences of having an ice shield would be. I'm like, I don't even care. An ice shield can't exist. But oh my goodness. That was nonsensical.
And I love one of the things I love is he's like, well, super cold ice can be magnetic, which by the way, it takes more than just being super cold to make ice paramagnetic. But
yeah,
the fact that you haven't even bothered to figure out under what physical conditions that might occur, and then you just go with it as your explanation, it's like, dude, you have to get there first before you offer it. You can't just pull it out your ass and be like, oh, that's just all it is. It's just magnetic ice. It's like, no, there are certain conditions under which ice can become weakly magnetic. Did you satisfy them? Because if you didn't, it's not going to work. I mean, I just, it's very confusing. Also, in somewhat Kent personal news, because I know we do have some people who like the Kent gossip. Apparently, he's already on to wife number 4. So I'm sure if you were anyone in my audience, if you were hoping to be the next Mrs. Hovind, that position has been filled for at least the next few months. So
after the chat for Erica.
Yeah, I know. Erica had her hopes up, but sorry, Erica. No, you might be able to get to be number 5. So here's hoping. Fingers crossed.
Let's see.
Oh, and by the way, we did have a super chat before we started, and it was for 20 secs from Command Cyborg. Thank you. The secs is always appreciated. All gaze into the void, and the void stared back. So there you go.
Mm-hmm.
That is, of course, his donation to the Church of the Void. So don't worry, I have not excommunicated you yet. Just keep the donations rolling.
And certainly 60,000 PSI isn't going to be like, you can't shoot a rock into space and hit the moon with that. You can't.
Not even close. Oh, and for $5 from Mr. Wilford, damn, I guess I have to wait to be his next wife. Male. Yeah, Mr. Wilford, you and Erica can have a duel to see who gets to be Kent Hovind, Mrs. Hovind 5 now. My goodness. So, that is actually one of the things, like, all you really have to do is look at, okay, what is the maximum amount of potential energy that the crust could carry over these hypothetical oceans? That's how much energy you can impart to the water that shoots up. Is it enough to hit the moon? No. Also, Kent doesn't know what escape velocity is because he thinks that the Theia impact had to result in things hitting escape velocity. Here's a hint for everybody. Orbital velocity at any distance from the Earth is less than escape velocity at the same distance. Because if it weren't, you wouldn't be orbiting, you'd be escaping. It's sort of like orbital mechanics 101.
Yeah, well, and like he was trying to act like it was a gotcha moment that I was talking about the model of how the moon formed, of a Mars-sized body coming in and colliding and ripping everything apart, that was somehow less plausible than rocks pew-pewing up from the surface of the Earth.
Oh, and he didn't know that there were craters on the far side of the moon?
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, so I didn't count all the craters on the moon, but I really did spend 3 years in my undergraduate life doing a lot of data editing on the Lola mission. And I specifically used Lola data to measure simple craters in the lunar mare. And then that was my primary project. And then I was like involved with other projects that was looking at craters all over the moon.
Now, is Kent right? Was that a government project?
I mean, it was joint funded by NASA and MIT.
Then it was a half government project.
I guess it was funded by NASA. So I guess it is a government
There you
project.
go. He was right. We
made a very detailed topographic map of the moon so that we could
pretty sweet.
Send people there. It was very cool. If I was at my office at school, I'd have a mug with the topographic map.
Oh, you know what we should do? We should get together like a collection and see if we can't get Kent Hovind a globe of the moon so that he can look at the far side and notice that it has craters.
Yeah.
Like, does he just not know that we've sent lunar orbiters?
The idea that you could make the mare by spitting out a piece of the Earth, like, no,
those are internal volcanism.
The it's partially, it's also a large impact.
Well, yeah,
internal volcanism is related,
but not from Earth. We're talking like interplanetary distances and speeds here.
Yeah,
Dapper, we have a super chat,
and it's got to be like hundreds of kilometers across the impactor.
Oh, you did? Damn it!
TD Lane, are you even here?
I missed that.
TD, come on.
No.
I'm the one drinking.
Hey, I didn't say I wasn't. I mean, I just listened to a Kent Hovind debate.
You see, what I was doing was I was trying to see how much pressure would actually be needed in order to launch something into space. But that's a rabbit hole I can't go down right now and also pay attention.
So basically, all you need to do is like come up with about the mass that all the impactors would require, and then like you can do the minimum. Like, what is the minimum mass that you can get at the impact at like the maximum speed that you can get from going from Earth to there? And then you just backtrack to see how much potential energy that requires, and then notice that, it's way more potential energy than you could possibly get.
Right. And I just want to point out a quick thing about Kent's debate tactics is like, I am not going to just say in a debate, and I mean, maybe I should, but like, I'm not going to say in a debate, that couldn't happen if I haven't sat down and done that math, right? Like, I know it can't happen, but I don't have the data to support it. But so like his debate tactic is to just keep saying things.
Yeah.
Right. And it's the gish gallop, right? I'm just going to say as many things as possible. And, the time it takes to debunk each of those is exponentially larger than the time it takes to say them.
Yeah.
So
I find it's usually somewhere around a 4-to-1 ratio. It usually takes about 4 times as long to show why a statement is true or not true as it does to simply state a stupid thing about science. And that's if you're like being very concise. If you really want to dig into the data, then okay, it's going to take longer. But that I find is usually about the minimum.
Right. And the topic I never got to get into was like, okay, why is a planetary science paper from 1994 like, that's a little sus. That's probably not up to date versus like, I don't know, what's an old field, right?
I mean, a 1994 paleontology paper would be fine if it's like the most recent description, which happens all the time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But like in planetary science, no. And he's like, well, this was a problem. It's like, yeah, I'm sure in 1994 it was a problem. Like, I don't know what's been solved. Yeah, because you don't read new papers, Kent. You cherry pick papers that you think help your case, and then you never follow up. Sorry, go ahead.
If I may, a 1894 geology paper that's like on just a sedimentary basin is perfectly fine. There might be later work updating that with the revelation that was plate tectonics, but otherwise that will be mostly fine.
Yeah, I mean,
as far as I can tell, Kent doesn't believe in plate tectonics.
He's a hydroplate proponent.
Yeah,
legitimately.
Yeah, so he has like a weird version of plate tectonics, and he thinks that current plate tectonics are working more or less according to the standard geological model. Like right now, Like if you ask
Right.
Kent, like, do you think the Pacific plate is subducting under like the Asian and the North American plate and stuff? He'd probably be like, yeah, that's fine, sure, whatever.
He didn't like panic when I said that stuff, you know, so I thought that was okay. But he does also think apparently that the plates formed because water broke them.
Yeah, so hydroplate kind of goes like this. There are I'm just describing that this as if it made any sense. So there, before the flood, there were these big, essentially underground oceans that the crust was primarily sitting above, and there were some like pillars or something of rock going from the bottom to the top to help support this. Because of course this is not a gravitationally at equilibrium situation here. And for some reason, around the flood, these columns cracked or collapsed or something, allowing the crust of the Earth to slam down, pushing water from these underground areas up onto the surface and into space. Now, this is under classic hydroplate, forming all the craters known in the solar system that aren't volcanic, as well as all of the comets. They're all from Earth water. Never mind the fact that there's not enough energy to do that, or the fact that the isotope ratio of the chemicals in the comets don't match the isotope ratio of water on Earth. Just don't worry about that.
And I want to be very clear about this. This is not a geological idea or hypothesis. This is made by a mechanical engineer who doesn't know what he's talking about.
Yeah, most creationists, young Earth creationists, have no time for hydroplate theory. Like, you're not going to get the people at CMI or AIG to even touch it.
Also, I'm sorry, completely unrelated. My brain's still like bouncing all over the place because I get to be ADD now. Just I can't in a debate.
No worries.
Am I crazy, or his stupid gold chest analogy? Does it make sense?
Not a bit.
Right?
Not even.
It doesn't.
Okay.
Yeah. So the problem is that he is right that is how you would tell when a ship sank, is you would look for the youngest datable thing. But the thing is,
but not like how
the Earth isn't
the first coin.
Right. The question isn't how old is the ship, it's when did the ship stop accruing new features that you could use to tell what time it is, right, or what year it is. That's what he's doing with the Earth. He's like, okay, well, at the youngest indicator on Earth, it's like, yeah, but Earth hasn't stopped gaining processes that gaining features that took time to make. So his analogy is much more like trying to say that, you know, oh, I got a pimple on my butt that like a week ago, so I'm only a week old. It's like, no, because while there is an aging process to things like, you know, skin infections, they don't have to start when you're born. They can start afterwards, considerably afterwards. It's the same thing where... Oh, sorry. We do have a $5 super chat real quick. Mr. Wilfer says, by the way, the moon has few craters on the far side because the crust is thinner there, which means more lava flows, which destroy hydro craters. I think he means the near side, because the near side is the one with fewer craters.
Well, it's specifically that the mare. So the northocytes on the near side and then the whole far side, the northocytes on the far side, those are all have an equal crater density, right? So by relative dating of crater counts, they are the same age. Yeah. Right.
But the mare are younger.
The mare specifically are younger. So there was something, large impactors came in, actually disrupted the gravitational field of the moon. So the moon's gravitational field is super wonky, and it's really cool. It was mapped by Grail in 2012.
That's actually why stable moon orbits don't exist.
Yeah.
You just can't indefinitely orbit the moon. Sorry, guys. You're either going to leave lunar orbit or you're going to crash eventually. One of those things will happen.
Anyway, so the mare are younger because they're less heavily cratered. So that's just this large impactor came in. There was widespread melt. It erased what was there, and then it solidified, and then new craters came in and hit.
Yeah.
And the craters in the mare are shallower than they should be. Yeah, I know. Welcome to my undergraduate research project.
Do we have a good explanation for that?
No.
Interesting.
Actually.
Interesting. Oh, and apparently I was right in that slight correction to Mr. Wilford. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that is in fact what he meant. So
I know an obscene amount about impact craters on the moon.
Hey, you know
more
what?
than anyone human could.
That's cool. I think it's cool. Space is cool.
I've had a funny revelation, which is that the house analogy that you used, that Ken said, no, that's not accurate. is actually more accurate to how Earth is, because things can happen and be added to Earth that are older or younger than it in case of meteors.
Well, this comes to one of the themes that Kent likes to go through. He likes to go find things that are about 4,000 years old or 4,500 years old or thereabout, and say, see, if the flood happened, why didn't we have an older name that thing? But the great thing is, sometimes he just gets it badly wrong. Like, he'll say, oh, you know, the start of desertification in the Sahara was probably around 4,500 years ago. Like, well, first of all, no, but even if it were, we have the Atacama Desert that has been arid for like 30 million years. Like, it's not even close to the oldest desert. Not even remotely close.
You know why the Sahara Desert is a desert? Because the Hadley cell. Nobody believes me when I say how important the Hadley cell is and why I spend a weird amount of time thinking about it. But the Hadley cell.
So Don Giovanni says, isn't the lunar reconnaissance orbiter in a relatively stable but wonky orbit? I think it's called a rectilinear halo orbit. Yes, but the thing is that it is not a long-term stable orbit. So, for instance, the moon is in essentially a stable orbit around the Earth, right? The orbit is going to stay stable longer than the expected lifetime of the Earth-Moon system, right? The Earth-Moon system will probably get destroyed by the sun going nova before the moon manages to escape. That is not true for any orbit of the moon. Any orbit of the moon that you can make right now, it will decay either to escape or to impact during the expected lifetime of the Earth-Moon system.
So, by the way, LRO completed its mission, right? It's like official mission and its funding and all that jazz ended in, I think, 2012, and then they were able to extend because it's still getting, you know, there's as long as it'll stay orbiting, you get new photos because there's LROC is a beautiful camera that's on it, super high resolution. And then you're making the map more accurate with every single orbit with LOLA, lunar orbital laser altimeter. But its official mission was only for a few years. So everything we're getting now is already bonus.
Yeah.
So if it crashed into the surface of the moon tomorrow, nobody would actually be too terribly heartbroken about it.
Yeah, we're already on bonus time right now.
Yeah, we've been on bonus time for about 10 years.
We're in like the 47th inning or something of this mission.
Yeah. Okay.
It's the infinite baseball game.
Also, both to Dapper and TV Lane and chat, another place was I taking crazy pills, or I explained why the moon moving away isn't a problem, right? Like, please tell me that made sense to someone else.
No, it did.
Okay.
Also, Kent's response to that. No, go ahead, Dapper.
His complete lack of understanding that there is a relationship between the energy transfer involved in tidal locking and then the energy transfer in transferring rotational energy from the Earth to the moon, which then puts it in higher orbits. Like, the fact that no connect there is just like, so you don't understand anything about orbits or tides or gravity. Like, all of that stuff is stuff that you just isn't in your field of awareness is what that means to me.
Yeah. Well, and the reason that I gave up on that was okay, I feel like I've answered that, but let's move forward, was because at that point I felt like he was being intentionally not understanding.
That's a possibility.
And I certainly can't prove that, but I've because I teach classes and TA and whatnot, and I've absolutely had a super frustrated undergrad, right? They completely bombed a homework problem, and I sat there and I walked them through the right answer, and their answer was literally upside down, right? And so we got to, after I it was like an hour, and I was walking them through this homework problem of the correct answer, and they're like, okay, I get that, but why is my answer not right? And I'm like, honey, you are asking me why up and down aren't the same thing, right? If this is a genuine question, then you need to go take a nap and eat a pizza and come back to this in a few hours, right?
Ooh, what kind of pizza?
Any kind of pizza. Yeah. This is my recommendation when I get very frustrated undergrads and they're just like, I just don't understand it, blah, blah, blah. But they're also like, but I'm going to stay here until I do. I'm like, honey, go drink a glass of water, get yourself something to eat, and take a nap and look at it again.
Yeah.
And
persistence is nice, but at a certain point, like, you're at a brick wall. You're not going to get any farther.
yeah,
Go back,
right.
come
And
at
you're
it
going
from
to
a
be
new
much
angle.
better served by go take care of your body and take care of your brain, and then you can learn this. So like that's the point where I felt I was reaching, and I didn't want to be like, there's part of me that's like, I don't want to be rude. If you genuinely don't understand it, or if I'm genuinely not explaining something, then I want to rephrase it, right? I want to figure out a way to explain it, because that's why I love being at a university, right? Like I love teaching, and I'm kind of, I don't know, I think I'm good at it. You guys can tell me if I'm wrong, if I'm just living in a dream.
I think you're good at it. I mean, I've never taken a class, but your videos I think are good, so.
Yeah. Hey, thanks, man. But like, I also, if we're reaching a point where it's like, okay, honey, you need to go eat a pizza, or if I'm getting suspicious that like, I feel like you're intentionally not understanding. I feel like choosing to not understand. So then let's just move forward.
Here's why I think Kent might be intentionally trying to misunderstand. In my debate with him, I very carefully, towards the end, after I realized that like everything else was essentially just a lost cause, so he was just asking me bits of trivia, which, by the way, I don't normally see him do. He doesn't normally just ask his interlocutors to explain whole swaths of things without a bunch of snark. But every time I tried to explain that basically things like evolution is a function of population mechanics, and populations evolve, and then, you know, the reason that we could say this population would be the first of group X or whatever, it's simply because it is the population that gave rise to the future diversity of group X. It didn't suddenly change in some way. It was completely impossible for him to actually have those, like, the meaning behind those words penetrate into his brain and to understand them. So we continue to ask, like, oh, so a bunch of them all did it at the same time? It's like, no, it's not an individual thing. No individual organism did anything in this. They all, a population as a group, like, no. Completely nothing penetrated. And the thing is, look, his talking points have for decades required that the people believing him not actually know anything about any of the subjects that he touches on.
Yeah.
And I mean, his target audience are people who think big numbers are impressive per se.
Right. Well, the idea that like 6,000 years is a long time, like, no.
Yeah.
Like, not when you're talking about geologic time, not even like ocean circulation, right? Like, there's ocean. So I think actually meteorology is a great example of why like scales of time matter, and actually why at this point I'm incredibly bad at knowing what a long period of time is. Because we talk about scales all the time. So a thunderstorm was a mesoscale system. It happens on the course of hours, right? And it has a horizontal length scale of like maybe 10 kilometers, right? Maybe 100, I guess, if you're looking like, it's very different, like length versus width.
I mean, I'll take your word for it. I don't know a damn thing about it.
I think we can all agree that 1 billion years is a long time.
1 billion years is a long time.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, and so like, but if we're talking about like climate, well, climate happens over like 100 years. Like decades would be the shortest. But then if we're talking about like, I don't know. So like, I'm really used to thinking of time in very different scales, right?
Yeah.
And I understand that people, even like a lot of my friends, and even like, so like my husband is wonderful. He poured me this beer right after the debate ended.
Quick round of applause for the husband pouring a beer. I said to Maddie beforehand, that is the sign of a good partner when they're ready with the beer for you after a tough debate. That's a keeper.
So, and he's a lawyer, and he has his like undergraduate degree is in history, right? And so, oh my gosh, if you want to know like dates about wars and the generals that led them, of things that I didn't know existed, right? He's just got those off the top of his head, and it always like amazes me. But if I start talking about like, oh yeah, that'd take a while, he usually thinks like, what, like a year? I was like, oh no, like 100,000.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're not used to thinking in deep time, it's not something you do kind of naturally. It's a learned skill.
Yeah.
And so I recognize that like if not Kent himself, then certainly a lot of most people in his audience aren't used to thinking in deep time. And so I don't know how you combat that, because that's like, I recognize I'm mostly speaking to the people in the audience and not Kent. Like, he's not going to change his mind. But I don't know. I'm pro addressing points. That
Yeah.
was honestly, that debate was remarkably civil. Like he got preachy a lot, but it was Nathan Thompson's my standard.
Well, okay, if by that standard, then yeah. I find Kent Hovind, though, his level of civility depends on two things. One, the other person's level of civility. He will sink to whatever level the other person will go to. Well, actually, I should say he'll sink there. He tends to start off by matching. So if you start off being relatively civil, that's where he'll start. But the exception to that is when he starts to think that he doesn't look good to his audience, that's when he starts getting nasty, even if you won't. So now, of course, it seems very hard to figure out whether or not he thinks he's looking good to his audience because, I mean, the man is a massive narcissist who doesn't know anything about almost anything. In fact, he's not even very, very good at the Bible, which should be his main thing.
Yeah.
But even there, it's pretty iffy. I've seen some pretty bad Bible takes from Kent Hovind. So
like, completely separately, I would love to have a theologic discussion with this man, but like that's a different conversation.
That would be interesting.
Right?
I do.
Yeah, for those in the audience that don't know, I'm not an atheist. I happen to be Christian.
Well, according to a large number of people on the internet, that means I'm supposed to like get rid of you because apparently this is an atheist channel. I get that a lot on Twitter. Yeah. It's like, oh, look at the atheist channels like Dapper Dan. I'm like, in what way is this a channel about or exclusively for atheists or atheism?
Right.
Like,
it's just about science.
Yeah. Now,
I go on a lot of atheist channels, by the way.
Oh, I do too. But it's like I don't go on there to talk about how silly, belief in God is. I go on because we're talking about something about science.
I thought this was a Voidtheist channel.
Oh, that's true. We are members. Yeah, this channel does actually now have an official religion. It is the Church of the Void.
I see. I don't know if I can abandon Raptor Jesus from Skylar Fiction's channel. I'm a pretty
Okay, but why doesn't Raptor Jesus have feathers?
Yeah. Yeah.
Look,
see,
Raptor Jesus went extinct for your sins. And
yeah, he went extinct because he didn't have any feathers to keep him inside.
Dig those claws into your heart and open the doors.
Oh man,
I love Raptor Jesus so much.
Actually, that reminds me. I did see an updated Velociraptor with like scientifically accurate integument. It was a lot of fun.
Ooh,
it was very, very floofy.
I like.
Yeah, so that was fun. But
yeah.
So
under his claws.
That's what I want. I want to know Kent Hovind's take on Raptor Jesus.
Run Raptor Jesus. That's what I want to know.
I mean, look, maybe the raptors need saving too.
Raptor Jesus was turned into delicious fried meat for you.
Actually, I think
for your sins.
Oh, I could go for some fried. I know it's like 10 o'clock at night, but now I want fried chicken.
Well, before I knew that this after show was happening, my original plan was actually to fry some calamari rings.
Ooh.
Yeah, I was gonna fry them in some panko breading.
You know what I made for dinner the other night?
I don't.
All right.
You didn't tell me.
All right, guys. I got some beautifully ripe plantains. We fried those up in chunks. And then I just did a nice onion, bell pepper, tomato, habanero, black bean thing together on some cilantro lime rice and a little queso fresco. Got a lot of heat from that habanero cut by the sweetness of the plantain. Ugh, so good.
I am jealous. What did I do last? Oh yeah, I had some smoked turkey with a gravy that I made with sort of Korean flavors instead of going like Western European flavors. So but,
Love, I did recently. I've got some friends out here where our favorite thing to do is get together and make an elaborate meal and drink and play board games. It's a very fun way to spend the weekend.
That is an excellent way, yes.
So we did a Korean brisket.
Ooh.
And we did lemongrass, soy sauce, jalapeno in there though.
Oh, you can buy jalapenos in Korea. Don't worry about it.
Okay. I would have done ginger, but my ginger root I had was moldy, so we didn't have ginger. So we did a Korean brisket, but then we did tacos, right? So I made corn tortillas, and we did brisket, And we did some with kimchi, so brisket and kimchi in a corn tortilla shell. And I also did some like pickled onions and queso fresco. So that was also really good.
This house currently has about 1.5 gallons of kimchi. So
nice.
Yeah, there's always kimchi here. But that doesn't have a whole lot to do with Kent Hovind, which I know
it's a little more fun to talk about.
It's hard. It's hard to stay on just Kent Hovind for very long because, like, oh my goodness, he is an unpleasant individual.
Dapper, we need to talk about one of the worst parts of that debate.
Go for it.
When he said that dinosaurs were lizards,
and
that they grow in that dinosaurs are just big lizards.
Even worse, he said apparently beavers just keep growing, and that's why there were large beavers in the past. And by the way, the large quote unquote beavers, they're not actually beavers.
Well, they're not. And they're also not elephant sized.
No, not even close.
Yeah. Beavers aren't indeterminate growers.
Yeah.
Their teeth keep growing, but not the rest of them.
Also, like, I know he was going to the biology and fossil stuff because, like, news alert, that's not my field.
Yeah, right? He will like, desperately try to go to some place you don't know about.
Right. So I was trying to bring him back, and I intentionally didn't engage with those things, even though some of them, like, I know that's wrong, but I don't know exactly why, and it's not my field, so I need to not engage.
Yeah.
And just bring him back to things that I understand. So talk to me about the insect thing, though.
Okay. So the thing with the insect is that it's not so much that large insects need high atmospheric pressure. They don't. What they need is a high partial pressure of oxygen.
Oh, that's easy.
Yeah, so all you need is a higher oxygen content in the atmosphere. That's it.
Which we used to have. That's
exactly. It has literally nothing to do with the overall pressure. It's just the partial pressure of oxygen. Now, and I know that not everyone knows about partial pressure, and since I think that's more of your thing, if you want to explain that to everyone, because it's a weird concept, but...
Yeah. Okay. So, team, if you're at the surface of the Earth, I assume. So the atmospheric pressure outside is about 1,000 hectopascal, right? And if you were to like measure that atmosphere, right? 78% of it is diatomic nitrogen, 21% is diatomic oxygen, and then it's water vapor, CO2, and all the other things that fall out, right? Blah, 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 blah. So, right, and you think of atmospheric pressure as the weight of the air above you. That's the best way to think about it. Because it's just held down by gravity, so it's just a really tall column of air sitting on your head, and it weighs, it has a weight. So, right, so 78%, so nitrogen is smaller than oxygen, right? So even though nitrogen is going to make up 78% of the molecules above you, that doesn't mean it's 78% of the weight, if that makes sense, right? So the partial pressure is, okay, if I know how big one diatomic nitrogen molecule is, and I know what percent of this column, so how much of the mass is the nitrogen, I can figure out how much of that pressure I'm feeling is from nitrogen.
Right.
So if you want to, and the same thing with the oxygen and all the other gases. So if you want to, and that's called the partial pressure. That's what partial pressure is. And if you added up all the partial pressures, you'll get that, it's average 1,013 hectopascal.
Exactly. Right? And so the problem with insects is that they breathe through spiracles, which are little holes that exist along their exoskeleton, usually along the abdomen, right? And they don't have very strong active breathing mechanisms. So it's very hard for them to bring in large volumes of air in any decent amount of time. So when you increase the partial pressure of oxygen, it means that their oxygen uptake is easier. They have an easier time getting oxygen to their tissues. So when you increase the partial pressure of oxygen, by increasing the proportion of the atmosphere that is oxygen, insects can get bigger because they're better able to oxygenate larger bodies. And that's it. That's all it takes. You don't have to have some kind of hyperbaric Earth in order to get big insects. In fact, it's not clear that hyperbaric conditions would allow for insects anyway, because the partial pressure wouldn't actually change in relationship to the partial pressure of nitrogen. You need the partial pressure, like, in relation to the other gases to start going up, because otherwise other gases will have just as easy a time dissolving into the fluids in your tissues.
So absolutely, if you just took the atmosphere as it is now and compressed it, you don't change the partial pressure.
So that whole thing it's dumb. But then to make it even sillier, he tries to pretend that that is then going to tie into the size of like tetrapods, who are generally not limited by their respiratory apparatus. Now, we have a $5 super chat from Mr. Wilford. If your evolutionary meteorology is correct and there is a giant column of air over my head, how do I have the same pressure in my apartment? QED wrecked. Well, there you go. I mean, the column of air stops at the ceiling, so...
Flexed.
Yeah, there's no air in your apartment. You're right.
No. What I mean is the column of air above my head stops at the ceiling. So there's air, but it stops at the ceiling. So how is it that I'm feeling the full pressure from all the air above my ceiling when I have a ceiling?
You're right. You should definitely be suffocating.
Yeah. So
well,
or your evolutionary meteorology is BS, Maddie.
You're right. Clearly, I'm just a shill.
How much is NASA paying you?
Right now, exactly $0.
Ooh, feels bad.
Feels so bad. I think I negotiated wrong, I guess.
Yeah, you should. Maybe you should have brought an advocate into your salary negotiation with NASA for the shill bucks.
Yeah.
So, with the tetrapods thing, well, I mean, sure, you know, it's easier to be any animal in a situation where there's more oxygen, right? It's just easier to breathe, no matter what. I mean, heck, I've been on oxygen when I had trouble breathing. And surprise, surprise, it was easier to breathe when I was on oxygen. Because then I wasn't dying of pneumonia at the time anymore.
No.
Weird.
It made me sad.
Well, it's not exactly a secret. I almost died of pneumonia once when I was in the Navy. It's a thing that happened. Yeah.
Oh, that's rough.
Yeah, it was rough. I was admitted to the medical ward for like a week. Which never happens. They never let people stay in the medical ward for a week. Are you kidding me?
Nope. Wait, were you underway?
Yeah.
Oh, fuck.
We were coming back from deployment.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, there's our first. There's our one and only allowed F-bomb.
I'm sorry. I thought I got them all out pre-stream.
PG-13 rules, guys. We get one.
All F-bombs will now be charged $10, of which I already owe 10 to Dapper.
Yeah. Come on, TD.
You started talking about the Navy. My saltiness of my language just grows exponentially.
I know. So I'll stop. But anyway, but the thing is that primarily things that limit tetrapod size are just things like metabolic efficiency, ability to dissipate heat, ability to adapt to graviportal limb arrangements, things like that, right? That's why things in the ocean can get a lot bigger, because some of those things are lifted, right? You don't have to have a graviportal stance in the water because you're going to be more or less neutrally buoyant under most circumstances, so it's not a big deal. But yeah, the idea that atmospheric pressure is going to make things grow bigger is, I mean, there's just no reason to think that that's the case, especially not with mammals like the beaver that Kent brought up. There's literally no reason to think that mammals, whose size is primarily a combination of genetics and nutrition, like your size is mostly genetic, and then nutrition will allow, within the phenotypic plasticity that your genome allows, will allow some variation, right? But like, if you have a bunch of people from, like, say, like one of the people groups in Africa that, you know, traditionally been called pygmies, where their average height is hovering around like 4 feet, right? I don't care how good their nutrition is. Their kids are never going to be the same height as, say, the kids of some Scandinavian people, even if those kids have poor nutrition, because genetics is a huge portion of that, and then there's some plasticity within that. So for almost all animals that are, you know, the big animals that we think of, your height is primarily going to be genetically determined, and even for indefinite growers, like many reptiles, right? So most lizards, crocodilians, things like that are indeterminate growers. They don't ever actually stop growing. The thing is, they approach a certain size asymptotically, right? So for instance, I have, as pets, 2 adults, actually they're basically like, they're pretty old. They're getting on elderly leopard geckos. And they have not visibly changed size in years. I know that they are technically growing, But they're never going to make another full inch. It's just never going to happen. Even if I could somehow keep them alive for another decade, which I won't.
Yeah.
I mean, if they make it another 4 years, I'll be impressed. But even if I could keep them going for another decade, they're just not going to grow another inch.
Well, and his point that like you need a significantly different like atmospheric conditions to have a mammal that's 8 feet long. I'm like,
yeah, that's not extraordinary.
Right.
Yeah,
There's a reason I said like elephants exist, and I should have said like a horse is bigger than that. You know, like.
Yeah, I mean it's not longer, but it probably weighs more.
Are common.
I wouldn't say common, but they're not unusual. They're a typical part. They're a typical part of most environments.
Okay. See, but that's also why like I stopped at elephants exist because so not my field, so I can't represent it well.
Yeah. In fact, so the vast majority of animal species come in like basically squirrel or smaller. But like megafauna are a part of almost every environment. It's basically if you have an established environment, megafauna are going to be a part of it. And it would be weirder to find a place that just didn't have any than to find extra. And so megafaunal organisms are ubiquitous. They're not common in the same sense that like, you know, they're all over the place, but they every environment is going to have. So for instance, where I live, the megafauna tend to be deer and pronghorn and coyotes, right? These are all the large animals in the area. And then going down from there, we have, you know, we've got things like buzzards, and we've got larger snakes like rattlesnakes and things like that, right? But like, we have pronghorn. They're really big, at least for as far as mammals go. They're not elephants, but it wasn't that long ago that you could have found proboscideans here.
Yeah.
Mammoths go burr.
Completely unrelated. Is literally anyone surprised to find seashells on top of mountains? Does that surprise anyone? That's not 7 years old.
Well, another thing is Kent doesn't know the difference between brachiopods and clams, and he never has.
Yeah.
Well, see, and I don't either, but I don't.
But you're not.
Shall I explain?
TD, feel free if you would like to explain the difference. Go for it.
Please.
I'm going to go into the three main things, which is the difference between brachiopods and clams. Clams will open up when they die. Brachiopods don't. Brachiopods lock. So that is one of the major differences between the two. There are differences, but for the example here, those are the two most important. So when Kent picks up a clam or a brachiopod, he can't tell the difference, and I know he can't.
Yeah.
He's probably either looking at a clam that died while it was buried, because clams bury themselves in their lifestyle, or he's looking at a brachiopod.
And well, so there's a few things with brachiopods. First of all, brachiopods aren't even mollusks. They're in their own phylum.
Okay.
So mixing up a clam and a brachiopod is about as big a mistake as mixing up a spider and a squirrel. There is essentially nothing but superficial similarities there. Like you should not be mixing these up. If you are, you don't know enough to talk about the subject. Now, one of the biggest ways you can tell the difference in a fossil between a brachiopod and a clam, if all you have is the shells, is that so clams have their shells are left and right shells, so they are mirror images of each other. Brachiopods, their shells are actually top and bottom, which means the shells aren't mirrors of each other. They have mirrored halves, but the bottom shell fits into the larger top shell. So if you have paired shells, but there aren't mirror images of each other, then you've almost certainly got a brachiopod. Because they fill very similar niches. They both tend to be sessile filter feeders who, you know, use their shells as protection against predators. But because of that difference in symmetry, you have to not know what you're talking about in order to mix them up. Because another thing is, a single shell from a bivalve mollusk, like a clam, doesn't necessarily actually have a line of symmetry. Many bivalve shells singly are not symmetrical. Many of them are curved in one direction or another. That means you can't draw a line of symmetry. But you can always draw a line of symmetry down the middle of a single brachiopod shell. But you can't draw a line of symmetry between them, which you always can for bivalves.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a very random question.
Shoot.
Are the shells of brachiopods also made of calcium carbonate?
I believe so, but I would not quote me on that.
That is accurate, I think. I do not remember off the top of my head.
Okay.
Yeah.
I do have shells of both bivalves and brachiopods here. I have to go digging in my room to get them, though.
I'm solely interested in the oxygen 18 to oxygen 16 isotope ratios, and then the magnesium and its chemical symbol is SR. Is it strontium?
I think that's strontium.
Yeah. Those ratios, magnesium and strontium ratios to calcium, because fun fact that tells you about the temperature. Those are paleoclimate analogs.
Now, I could not tell you what the numbers are for any of those because I've never, ever looked into it. I'm more of a morphology kind of guy than I am a chemical kind of guy. Which is why I can tell you about planes of symmetry, but like when you're like, what's it made of? I'm like, hard things? I don't know.
Gotcha. So I've been doing some paleoclimate stuff on my channel. Like I've got like 3 or 4 videos coming out on paleoclimate. And a huge analog that's used to look at temperature is oxygen 18 to oxygen 16 isotopes, and then the ratio of magnesium and strontium to calcium, because the warmer it is, the more of the lighter element or isotope you'll get, and the colder it is, the more of the heavier.
Interesting.
So you can use that to create a really, like, actually pretty detailed line. So in the last, 10 years, all these paleoclimate became a field, and everybody that studies it is like, okay, I need all your shells.
Now hold on, let me stop you. I feel like what you might have heard was, bring me a lot of shells. What I said was, bring me all the shells you have.
All of them.
Exactly.
One of my paleontology and one of my favorite memes all together. Always good stuff.
All together.
So for $2, Mr. Wilford says, yes, they are carbonates like most shelled animals. I had figured so, but I was not nearly confident enough to actually state, because it's like when I was like, probably.
Because we here on Science Friends are good kids and don't claim to know things. We don't.
We actually express our level of confidence, and when that level of confidence is low, we're willing to point that out. Like, I think, maybe, but I don't actually know, so please don't take my word.
Yep.
My confidence is always low because memory bad.
Well.
Yeah, which that's like I am always what I am good at remembering, and this is why I'm not in a biological science, right? Eric and I talked about this a lot when I interviewed her for my channel. I am super bad at remembering a specific name or a specific fact or detail, right? So I could not. So when she just rattles off Latin names, I'm like, oh my goodness. But what I'm good at is I'm very good at remembering the overarching idea and how to go from how to derive the specific from the big picture.
Yeah.
But so that's what I'm good at, and that's why I like math and dynamics and things like that.
Sorry, go finish up. But you reminded me of something.
As I say, that also kind of, I feel sometimes I've only done a handful of debates ever in my entire life. And there's a reason I don't like, I don't know how much I like debating, because debating to me feels like it rewards remembering explicit facts. And I'm just not super great at that.
Well, that's why I go in with notes ready.
Yeah, well, and I had notes for my opening statement, right? Because there's no way in the world I was going to remember that the mass of the Earth's crust is, as she consults her notes, 10 to the 23rd kilograms.
And we have $2 from Bob Knob, who says, I prefer to make things up and see how it goes. I mean, that's a strategy. Look, that was my strategy for my opening statement for the Flat Earth debate. Because I'll be honest, I didn't care that much about a Flat Earth debate, because it's even sillier than a young Earth creation debate. So I'm just like, you know what? I'm drinking mead, and I'm going to wing it.
Ooh, I would go for some mead. Should I get another beer, team? I have some lighter beers.
Yeah, I was going to say, don't have another stout, but I think another beer is appropriate.
I've got nice...
In fact, actually, I'll tell you what. We've been going for almost an hour, so why don't we take an intermission so that Maddie, the lush that she is... Sorry. can get herself hey, come on, man, PG-13.
I didn't say it.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, how about this?
Yeah,
Maddie, the former sailor that she is,
Yes.
can go get another beer, and I say that like I'm not about to pour more rum into a glass.
Right. Okay.
So,
I'll be right back. Also, team in chat. I'm periodically peeking over and looking at chat. So if you have a question for me, feel free to tag me at Science Side Up, and I'll see it. Because otherwise, I'm not going to see it. If it's not highlighted, I'm not going to.
Yeah, try to tag both of us, and if I notice that it's a question and Maddie doesn't see it, I'll try to get it in there. And of course, I mean, if you want to make extra sure, if you do super chat, I will feel contractually obligated to read it. So there is that. All right, well, we're going to take an intermission. We'll talk to you in just a few minutes. I want to take a moment to talk about something serious. There is a problem facing late surviving non-avian dinosaurs in modern America. Hunting is very strictly regulated and only allowed at certain times of the year. This means that for much of the year we have to rely on farm-raised food, which means money. If you want to help a starving dinosaur, please consider donating on Patreon or buying from my merch store. Links are in the description. Please help. Dinosaurs all over YouTube are depending on you to help them through the hunting off-season. Oh, Nani? Dare? Oh, こちらですか? Hi, ゴジラさん. Hi. All right, and we are back. Sorry, I didn't turn off the intro video before we came back, but, you know, things. Why don't I open the panel to guests? So, I am willing to open the panel to people who I am familiar with. There has been a rash lately in the community of inappropriate shenanigans on live streams, shall we say? So, until there has been some time without that, I basically, unless I have vetted the people beforehand, I'm not opening it up to those people. So there are a number of people, some of whom are creationists, who I will open it up to. But basically, I probably have to have had some extensive interaction with you beforehand, or be very familiar with your channel before I'm gonna open this up, which is unfortunate. I would like to have it be much more open. I have done open mic stuff before, but yeah, basically, just recently, people have done things in order to try to report streams for community guideline violations on the basis of their own action on the stream, and that's about as specific as I'm going to get. And so, while that is a thing that has happened in recent times, yeah, I'm a bit cautious on opening up the stream to just anyone to come in, especially on a platform like StreamYard, where you can turn on your camera, and I can't control whether or not it's on, or whether or not people can see what you're showing me. So, I feel like if you can't read between the lines there, maybe spend more time on the internets. Or don't, which maybe would be better for you.
Unrelated, Dapper, but there's a question that I was tagged in from Josiah Hansen that I think is very important we address.
Oh, okay.
And that is, which is my favorite Ninja Turtle?
Ooh.
And the deeply unfortunate answer is that I didn't watch a lot of Ninja Turtles.
Heresy.
But so my answer is the Pink Power Ranger.
Which one? Which one, Maddie?
Oh, the first one.
Okay, so Kimberly?
Her name was Kimberly? Yeah.
Her name was Kimberly Hart, which is hard to figure out because they very rarely use her first name.
Yeah, but no,
Okay.
my mom handmade me a Pink Power Ranger costume for Christmas when I was 6.
Nice.
So
That's pretty
the
sweet.
greatest thing of all time. And she made my sister a yellow Power Ranger one.
Now, I will say that Kimberly Hart was a pretty good Pink Ranger, but she doesn't hold a candle to Jen Scott's, who, of course, is the best Pink Ranger. So, that is, of course, the Time Force Pink Ranger, who effectively led the team for most of that season, instead of the Red Ranger, who was kind of worthless for most of that season.
Gotcha.
But then they fell in love, and it was very frustrating when on the last episode, as she's about to go back to the future to live out the rest of her life and they'll never see each other again, that they end it with a friendly hug. I was like, screw you, Saban. Screw you. That's not the emotional payback anyone, even the kids watching, wanted.
Yeah.
So, all right.
I just remember, like, first grade Maddie, I would run home from the school bus, right? And I'd watch Power Rangers,
Nice.
And then we'd watch Wishbone. They were on, like, back to back.
All right, so a couple things. One is, I'm glad you didn't pick Venus as your favorite Ninja Turtle. Because she's technically in there somehow. But also, did you watch the Power Rangers episode that had the Ninja Turtles in it?
No.
Oh, yeah, that happened. So, in Power Rangers in Space, which is the 3, 4, 6
I
season?
only watched for, like, original Power Rangers.
Oh, see, here's the thing. For a while, a few years ago, 2 of my nieces were with me at my apartment every weekend. And boy, did they like nothing more than to sit in my room on chairs to either side of my computer chair and just watch Power Rangers for as long as I would allow them to.
Excellent, yes.
And my elder niece, her favorite season of Power Rangers was Power Rangers in Space, which is the season where the crossover with the Ninja Turtles happens. And I watched that one season of Power Rangers probably 5 times in a row before I just said, nope, we're not watching. You can pick any other season of Power Rangers, but you cannot pick In Space. I will not allow it.
Right.
And so then
That's totally fair.
I finally convinced her to watch Lost Galaxy, and the only way I did it was I said, the Pink Ranger from Lost Galaxy, after the halfway point of the season, becomes a character from In Space. So it's got a character from Power Rangers in Space. She's like, okay, I'll watch that then.
Okay.
Fine. We finally moved on to the next season of Power Rangers, and then eventually she was able to continue on, so I didn't have to watch the same one season of Power Rangers over and over again. So, which then created in me sort of like I guess I kind of appreciate Power Rangers to some extent as an adult now, because I've watched so much of it already. I'm invested now.
Yeah. Gotcha.
So
Okay, I'm gonna interrupt briefly because I've got an eye on chat. And there's a couple people in chat are talking about chaotic dynamics, which is literally my favorite thing on planet Earth.
Nice.
So I would love to explain what it is, but I
right.
think you just got a super chat.
Yeah, I will just do that really quick because it's a pretty fast one. So for $5, Patriot University PhD, which is a wonderful name, by the way, it says, Science Side Up, great debate. Please debate the other titan of creationism, such as the respected scientists, evidence-free and standing for truth. So that's Nephilim-free, in case the evidence-free didn't work.
Okay.
Nephilim-free is a frustrating debate. I haven't seen Standing actually do a debate, like, ever. I've seen him back out of debates that he's promised to have. I've seen that happen a lot. Actually, I've seen him back out faster than Kent has backed out of debates. That guy is running scared from basically anyone who will interact with him directly. Who isn't a creationist, which is kind of weird given how many times he likes to send flexing arm emojis in chats. Very, very strange, very sad sort of person. Nephilim Free, on the other hand, actually will go into debates, but it's kind of like debating someone who is both an idiot and doesn't speak English.
That's frustrating.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not against doing more debates. They're not my favorite thing because that's just not how my brain works, as we've established. But like, even and I can't help but like, my assumption is that the other party is trying to understand what I'm saying.
Not with creationists.
Right. But like, that's how I go into things. Like, I want to understand what you're saying.
That's because you're an intellectually honest person.
Yeah, and so that's kind of hard. And so like, I don't want to not have conversations with people who disagree with me, right? But I also like, I'm very pro open and honest communication. I'll have a conversation with anybody, but I don't know if that's technically a debate.
Well, you can have not formal debate type discussions. Like, I've had some of those. I did one alongside Jackson Wheat on Steve McRae's channel with a guy who was a young Earth creationist, and by the end of it, after the show, the conclusion to that was like, I guess I'm not a young Earth creationist anymore. I was like, well, if you need help with that, let us know, because we have stuff that we can help out with.
Yeah.
Oh,
you're also very nice.
Sentinel Apologetics. So here is actually someone whose work I'm familiar with. Sentinel Apologetics is actually a channel I subscribed to recently. So yeah, I'll tell you what. I am at Dinosaur_Dapper on Twitter, Sentinel Apologetics. So send me a message request and I will accept it and send you the link to this. And because I know that you have a your own YouTube career to think about, and I'm familiar with you on both live streams and your own channel. Yeah, I really wish I could open it up more than that.
Okay, I got to talk about chaotic dynamics while you figure this out.
Dynamics.
I've got to. Yep. Sorry. Hi, Sunflower in the chat. You're asking really, really excellent questions, and this is literally my favorite thing. So, okay, because it's a branch of math, and it's weirdly a new field of math. There do not exist new fields of math. Math is always at least 200 years ahead of the science and engineering that uses it, right? So the fact that there's a math that's only been around since the late 60s is baffling, right? And very cool. And it's I've also spent all day writing a paper trying to apply chaotic dynamics to INSO, but that's for my tropical meteorology class. So the idea is, so if the highest math you have taken is calculus or below, you have only ever dealt with linear systems, right? or linearized systems. And so linear systems, it is very, very, very easy to figure out based off of where I am now, where will I be later, right? If I know the temperature in my house, or here's even something easier, right? If I spray some perfume in the center of a room, how long will it take for that to diffuse out to the edges? We understand the general behavior. It'll take a long time. The highest concentration of that will always be at the center, right? It's a system we fundamentally understand, right? We can kind of get the long-term behavior. Nonlinear systems and then chaotic systems don't do that. So the classic example, so a nonlinear system is actually a simple pendulum is a nonlinear system if you don't make the small angle approximation for my physics friends in the room. So if you're analyzing a nonlinear system, we can see that my pencil here is going to behave like a pendulum. We can see that it has a nice equilibrium state where the pencil is hanging downwards, and if I perturb it from that state, it's going to eventually settle down at that, hanging down. It also has a unstable equilibrium state where the pencil is like straight up and down, and it can stay like this until literally anything comes in and bops it, and then it falls down to its stable equilibrium state. So that's kind of how we analyze nonlinear systems, right? And all chaotic systems are nonlinear, not all nonlinear systems are chaotic. So if you're analyzing a nonlinear system, you're thinking about, okay, what are sort of my possible end states? We might not know all of the details of how we get from A to B, but we're going to know where we're going to end up, right? So with a chaotic system, right? And sorry, with my pendulum, right? Whether I start my pencil here or here, it's going to end up at the same place. With a chaotic system, if I start my pendulum here versus a bead of sweat further down is the difference between ending up in this state versus across the room. I did just throw my pencil for dramatic effect. So it's
much appreciated.
Highly dependent upon initial conditions.
Okay.
And again, it's like if you're off by down to the rounding error of a computer, right? The like bit difference of a rounding error of like your Intel i7 processor can be the difference between being here or my pencil ending up in Siberia. It's huge differences in end effect based off incredibly small differences in initial conditions.
Okay.
So yes, theoretically, possibly, if you had absolutely perfect initial conditions and a computer that never had to make a single rounding error ever, you could predict where it was going to be, but those two things are impossible.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Sentinel Apologetics, or Rob, welcome to the
Hi,
stream.
Rob.
It is nice to see you, man. This is your first time on my channel, so welcome.
This is the first time, yeah.
You just got to come into me ranting about math.
Yeah, well, so...
No, I just left you a private chat comment about what you're talking about.
Well, I became familiar with you when you were talking to Emery Moyna about Genesis. So, and then I also watched his live stream. Now, so Emery and I are on generally good terms, and so I don't want to be mean to Emery because we're friendly. We chat every once in a while. How's it going, stuff. And I show up on his channel. I've done some response videos, whatever. But man, his response to that conversation was it was a little bit ranty and rambly, and I was like, he seems. I don't normally use the word, but he did seem a bit triggered on that one.
He I even when he made that 1 hour response video, I don't know if he'll watch this, but if he does, I don't mind. Even in that 1 hour response, my comments are pretty much still responding to his 1 hour response.
Yeah, it's like I have nothing to add.
Do I make it? Yeah, exactly. Do I make a response? I don't know. So
yeah, but so did you see the debate between Kent Hovind and Maddie here?
Yes, actually, so Maddie, okay, just to put a little bit of context. So I know Dapper Dino, but but this is the first time him and I are talking literally right now.
Yeah, we've never actually interacted, even in text.
I guess I've sort of bumped in maybe once or twice, like probably like once a year or something. I've come onto this channel, sent a comment, and then just disappeared.
Bye.
So, yeah. And in
just
fact, I've seen you read
right
it.
out of chat. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just one of those, I just bump in, hey, and all right, goodbye. But it's no hard feelings. I actually like what Dino does on this channel. And
well, thank you.
And then I saw you interact with a good friend of mine, Josh Bowen.
Oh, yeah, Josh is good people.
Yeah, you were doing the reading out the classroom.
That was hilarious.
Act and yeah.
Oh man, that was hilarious.
Really yeah. And so I didn't expect this discussion to happen. I'm not really sub to modern day debate. It's just one of those, what's that guy up to? And I just searched it, and then I'm seeing Hovind on, and yeah.
I only watch a small subset of the debates.
Yeah.
If it's not like a science type topic, I just don't pay attention.
Because most of the debates are dumpster fires?
Yeah, well, yeah. In fact, actually, I
used to be subscribed, and I just left it because of the whole, there's 4 or 5 flat earth debates throughout the week.
Yeah.
And it's just...
I don't watch all the flat earth debates. If there's someone I know in them, I'll watch. I usually watch all the creation evolution debates. But I don't even watch the capitalism socialism debates, even though I know one of the people who goes in on those debates. Like, one of them is actually like a personal friend of mine. I don't care. I still don't watch.
I'll watch anything Dr. Josh does. Is he the Daniel debate that's coming up? Is that Josh? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that actually makes me suddenly be somewhat interested. Because originally I was like,
Hammurabi's good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll sometimes watch Skylar fiction. Yeah. Anytime Skylar goes on, I'll sometimes watch it. It kind of depends on the topic, but I hang out with Skylar a lot.
So, Rob, the big question that I like to ask my guests on these after shows is, what did you think of the debate?
So, Maddie, let me just say, so I'm walking in this. I'm being raw here. So I'm walking into modern day debate.
Yeah.
I haven't checked it in months, and I'm like, okay, here we go, Ken Hovind. But then I'm like, hang on, I recognize her. She was with Josh. Ooh, this is going to be interesting. So click. And so then I'm watching this, and I'm like already 60 minutes in. Like, this is 10 minutes before the Q&A. And in fact, I was coming in when you're talking about the moon formation event. Mm-hmm. And so I just loved it was thoroughly refreshing to see how you are just you're approaching it. Well, you give off the impression like you don't know who Ken Hovind is, because a lot of people would be triggered because they know Ken Hovind, right? Like, say Alan Ra, and so and I know you know Ken Hovind, but it's just the way you approached it, which was so refreshing. It was this sort of like, hey, look, this is the science, this is the scholarship, and look at this. Like, there's an enthusiasm in your voice and the way you presented it, and that put a smile on my face, and I honestly wanted to sort of like reach out and just say thank you for that. And that's why I was sort of searching for a way to. I didn't know you were doing an after show on this channel, so I went on Amy's, only briefly went on there to see if you were there, but I'm presuming you must be tired or something. But yeah, so you're here.
I was pouring a beer, is what I was doing.
Yeah. Okay. Well, and the other thing is so I have kind of become one of the after show channels that I've actually had people that I don't even really know request that I do an after show in the chat on Modern Day Debate when it comes to these types of debates, like especially about like science or creationism and things. So now when those things happen, especially if it's someone I know who's in the debate, I'm like, okay, people will ask me if I'm going to do an after show. Would you like me to do one? And of course, if they say no, then I'm not going to do it. Because, but if they say yes, then I start doing an after show. So I've started doing some of those fairly regularly. It's one of the channels. If there is a creation evolution debate or something like that on Modern Day Debate, and it's someone I know, so that's going to be like, I know Maddie, I know Gutsick Gibbon, Erica, myself, obviously, but a few others, then there's a fair chance that there's going to be an after show here. Even though I already went live earlier today. And I had a premiere today.
Definitely had a lot of content today.
Oh my goodness!
For you.
I went live with a Rob. Do you know what Creation Ministries International is?
Yeah, I apologize because they're Australian and I'm in Australia. This is, by the way, Kalgoorlie. This background.
Oh, nice.
Here, so.
I just write Tatooine, but
there aren't enough suns for Tatooine, Maddie. Come on.
You're right. You're so right.
But so they did this video that was why should we trust the Bible, and we only got through about 10 minutes of it on my friend's channel. It was Cheshire Vic's channel. And they didn't actually give us a reason to why we should believe the Bible in the first place. And most of what they gave was self-contradictory. Like it didn't actually work. And so that was my first 2 hours of content today. Well, actually, it wasn't even of content. It was about an hour plus of just trying to get the live stream going because we were having severe technical problems. Then just over an hour of actually doing that. Then I had a 2.5 hour premiere during Maddie's debate, and then I was very quickly after onto this.
Yeah, in Dapper's defense, this was the third attempt this week at getting that debate to happen. So
I was just like, nah, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But I will say, so you tried 3 times, and I know we brought this up before, but Maddie, what chances did I give you?
You gave me a 30% chance of it actually happening.
And I'm going to go ahead and say that the 33% chance that actually occurred, I feel vindicated on this one.
I rolled the ever mysterious D3.
That's easy. It's just a D6, and 1 and 2 is 1.
I know you divide by 2. It's
okay.
Fine.
All right. Well, that's true. You do play enough role-playing games, so you should know how to roll a D3.
I know how to roll a D3. I just get frustrated when it says roll a D3 when we all know that doesn't exist. We all know what they mean is roll a D6 and divide by 2.
I have seen 6-sided dice that were just labeled with only the numbers 1 through 3.
Gotcha.
So that's still not a 3-sided die, though.
Rob, I super appreciate your comment. I don't debate. This is like my 3rd debate ever of my entire life. And I usually go into them with the intent of having, open and honest communication. Because, otherwise my faith in humanity diminishes.
All right.
Well, Kent Hovind suck out your faith in humanity real fast.
If I may, while I know this is a bit off topic for what we're currently on, it is on topic for the after show. So I'm going to be leaving in a few minutes. But Dapper, would you like to explain why dinosaurs being giant lizards, as in, hey, here's a lizard skeleton, here's an archosaur skeleton, is just crazy?
I will make sure that I get that, but I will let the conversation here go a few more steps, and then I will make sure that I do get that just for you, TD Lane.
All right. I'll see you all another day.
Okay.
Have a good night.
Night.
So yeah.
Oh, I see also questions in the chat. Go on, Rob.
Maddie, I'll just say I am actually a Christian, so I'm theist, and I was literally sick in the stomach listening to the way Kent was talking about ice canopies and what was going through my mind. Oh, sorry, go for it.
I was like, Rob, you should probably know that I am also a Christian. I'm Episcopalian. I don't think Kent knows that, but I'm weirdly open about it on the internet because it comes up.
Sure.
Kent is one of the few people who knows more than most about my religious stances. And I gave him that information under conditions which he almost immediately violated, which is one of my little grudges against Kent Hovind.
Yeah, when we were setting up the date, his secretary asked for my full name and my phone number, and I'm like, that makes me incredibly uncomfortable.
That's why Eric and I didn't go forward with our debate against him, each of our second ones, because there's also a video on my channel. I think it's called Kent Hovind is a Coward, where basically we just read through the things his secretary asked us for, and we were just like, this is the internet, dude. These are completely inappropriate things to ask for anyone.
Right. Sarah, I'm going to answer 2 math questions from chat.
Okay.
So, Silver, was calculus developed specifically for gravity? I don't remember. I don't know that off the top of my head. I feel like it wasn't developed for gravity because it's so usually velocity is referenced as the formation, but I really don't know. And then is it from Verilion, is it correct to say that science doesn't provide absolute truth, but just probabilities? No, it depends. Well, science or math?
I would say science, yes. Math can provide absolute facts as long as you accept the axioms of the math that you're working with.
Well, but also like a scientific law of like gravity, the law of gravity is true.
But
right?
Laws have changed because all you need is an observation where the law doesn't hold. Because laws are based on empirical observation.
Yeah, but like if we assume that the law of gravity is true, right? And then we were to make a prediction based off the law of gravity. So gravity, that type of equation, and just like bodies acting by gravity, or just two bodies acting by gravity, is linear. So if you have a mathematically linear system and you're going to make a scientific prediction about it, then it can be an absolute.
Mr. Wilford
but you always
is here.
have error in measurements.
Hey Mr. Wilford, are you going to behave?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Wilford is the only person to have ever shown a gun on screen on my channel.
Oh, good Christ. I'm sorry about that. Anyways, I just want to point out one thing.
Yeah, what's up, man?
Kent Hovind's son has a entire website, like page, like an article, dedicated to explaining the flood without the vapor canopy, because even Eric Hovind knows it doesn't work.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Oof.
And yet that was one of his primary arguments against you, and I just think that's
that's.
And I did get him to admit that there's no natural cause that would get that to happen. So I feel good about that.
That was a nice one. I think that ultimately at this point, the only reason to debate Kent Hovind is, well, one, if you need a little bit of a boost to your channel numbers, fine, go ahead and debate Kent Hovind. I get it. But other than that, the only other thing is like to get him to admit to something that he would find embarrassing if he had any self-awareness. So for instance, for me, it was getting him to admit that he didn't know what a dinosaur is, despite calling himself Dr. Dino and saying that he lectures on dinosaurs and the Bible. So when I then get him to admit that he couldn't recognize a dinosaur if he saw one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just also, I reflect back a lot of times and kind of seeing internet young earth creationism of like the incredibly lovely conversations I had with like my command's very old chaplain.
Okay.
He was just a sweetheart, but he was like he was a full-blown commander. No, he was a full-blown captain. He was an 05 and a chaplain.
Captain's 06.
Sorry, 06. Goodness gracious! I've been out of the Navy too long, or
no, that's impossible.
I've been out of the Navy.
That's impossible. There's no such thing as being out of the Navy too long.
I'm sorry. No, I know he was because I'm just like I'm flashing back.
Did he have the silver bird?
And he had. No, he was a commander. It was a silver oak leaf.
Okay, there you go.
I was confused. So
I have some friends in the Navy who have only been in for 2 years, and they're about at the end of their rope.
Yep, that sounds about right.
Not a good place to work in.
One of these days, Dapper, we should have a rant about nuclear Navy.
No, because then I will just become angry and look. Okay, I don't know if you guys know this, right? Now, my personal name, like at least my first name, isn't exactly hidden knowledge. It's in one of my videos very prominently, my debate with Kent Hovind, because he refused to use my screen name. Timothy, the guy, who is a real person who lives in a place, in a house, and whatnot, he's not the same person exactly as Dapper Dino. There's a reason for that. It's because Timothy
because of the Navy?
Isn't as it's in large part because of the Navy. Timothy isn't as internet appropriate as Dapper Dino is. And if we had that discussion, Maddie, you couldn't have it with Dapper Dino because it would very quickly turn into a conversation with Tim. And that doesn't belong on the channel.
All right. Off stream.
All right, we can have a private conversation about that. I cannot do that on stream.
I need to rant to someone about being the only veteran and the oldest student in my graduate program.
Oh, I feel you.
Yeah. But my old chaplain, and I don't want to say his name because he but because it's on the internet, but he was such a kind man. And when he learned that I had a background where I knew a little bit about geology and geophysics stuff, he had like questions for me about young Earth creationism, because I guess he held to that. And we had multiple conversations over coffee where he asked me, he's like, I have these papers that someone has sent me. I would love for you to read them and give me your opinion. And I sat down and did that. Right. And we had such lovely, cordial conversations. And so like, and what it came down to was, for me, if you're going to hold to a young Earth creationist stance, right, I'm not going to tell you you can't, but if you're going to do that, you have to ignore a lot of really good science.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't know, just that was just, those were such nice, they were like the calmest part of my week, when I would sit down with chaps over coffee and we'd chat about a young Earth creationist geology paper,
Hey, look, I can say this. I don't think I've ever had an unpleasant interaction with a Navy chaplain.
Yeah. Oh, wait. No, there was one chaplain at my command that got like kicked out of the Navy because he was homophobic.
Well, okay. I'm not saying no one has ever had an unpleasant conversation with a Navy chaplain. I'm just saying
also like
I haven't.
A jerk to victims of sexual assault, so we don't.
Yeah, no.
We don't like him.
I will say then that is unusual based on my experience, because my experience with Navy chaplains has been universally positive. All of them have been very nice.
Yeah.
Very understanding.
Every other chaplain I've interacted with has been great, but that one guy.
Yeah, I guess there's always exceptions to the rule.
Yeah. But like I went to officer training with a couple chaplains that I'm like at least Facebook friends with them, and they're such lovely humans. And
that's like the kindergarten version of boot camp.
Yeah. No, it's Camp Cupcake. It's absolutely Camp Cupcake.
Well, anyways, I'm gonna get out of here, guys. I only wanted to pop in.
All right. Well, thanks for stopping in.
Even Hovind's kid doesn't agree with the ice canopy theory.
Yeah, and there's so much of it that's just science nonsense.
And Maddie, if you didn't know, they're apparently in the middle of some giant lawsuit between each other. Like Daddy Hovind and Baby Hovind do not like each other right now.
Not at all.
From what I've heard, so that might be some drama if you ever want to cover that aspect of pseudoscience on your channel.
I mean, I hear you. I'm not really in it for the drama. I'm really in it for the
fine.
I think
we'll see you guys later.
I think we missed a question from Silver Harlow or something. He says, wasn't calculus basically concurrent with the science it was describing, not 200 years ahead? I don't know.
I don't know.
I can make a comment on that.
Okay, go ahead.
So I was actually looking at Norman Wildberger's lecture series on the history of maths. Norman Wildberger, he's a New South Wales Australian lecturer in maths. And it's actually quite interesting. It all starts with Greco-Roman maths, which is not like the Arabic numeral. So it's so the number 1 was like a dot. Number 2 is 2 dots with a line that joins. Number 3 is a triangle. So basically, math was all to do with shapes and geometry. And when you draw a circle, there's this thing known as the method of exhaustion. So if you have a rigid polygon, can you convert a polygon into a circle? And this is known as a method of exhaustion. You're trying to smooth it out. Fast forward, and this was a big question for like 1600, 1700 years. Fast forward to Kepler and Kepler's laws of motion, so planetary motion, then Newton. It's actually to do with astronomy that calculus started. And Newton and Leibniz, independently, Leibniz as well, basically they used the gradient, so 2 coordinate points and the ratio of those 2 coordinate points. And then you have the theory of calculus just from the gradient understanding, but at the same time, it's been talking about when the distances between those 2 points practically become 0. So if you know how to derive, derivatives, like you know where I'm going with that. But yeah, it's basically, is there a way we can know precisely a gradient or the rate of change at any particular point on a curve, not a straight line, but a curve? And then you can then go into sort of micro changes. If you're talking about a dynamical system, which is again differential equations, which is what Matt was talking about a moment ago with that, chaos theory, and that's when things are in constant flux and movement, and you need computing for that. So yeah.
Well,
so Rob, that's such a beautiful and like eloquent way of putting it. When I try to explain to somebody what calculus is, it's this. It is, all right, team. You know what's kind of hard? A curve. Curves are hard and complicated. You know what's easy? A line. What if?
Yeah.
Bear with me. What if we pretended this curve was a bunch of lines?
Yeah.
And that's calculus.
An infinite number of lines.
Okay.
An infinite number of lines.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so Silver Harlow, if that didn't answer the question, I you might have to rephrase it. I'm sorry. I don't know. But I do now want to meet TD Lane's request, and we're going to talk a little bit about the difference between lizards and dinosaurs, because they are in fact quite different animals. They're really not very much alike. A lizard is much more different from a dinosaur than a human is to, say, a wombat. Much more different. Okay, so any two dinosaurs, even if you pick, like Triceratops and sparrows, are still much more closely related to each other than either one is to a lizard. And even they are less closely related to you than you are to a wombat. So we're talking extremely different here. So if you have a lizard, there's going to be a few skeletal characteristics that you can look at and say, this is a lizard. One of the big ones is that the teeth are not going to be set in their own individual sockets. Instead, there's going to be a little groove that runs around the dentary and the maxilla and the premaxilla on top, right? And the teeth will erupt from that little groove, and they won't have individual sockets. Okay? That's a big thing. Dinosaurs, when you have teeth, they're in sockets. In fact, even in birds, when you trigger, because you can actually get birds to start tooth formation if you tweak their genetics just a little bit. And when they start forming teeth, they form them in sockets, just like you would expect if birds are dinosaurs, which of course they are. Another thing is, if you look at the femoral head on a lizard, and the femoral head is the part of the femur that actually goes into the hip, right? The femoral head is going to be more or less in line with the entire shaft of the femur, right? So the femur is basically one long straight bone. One end is the knee, and you follow a line along, and you get to the femoral head where it goes into the hip. There you go. In dinosaurs, the femoral head is actually offset distinctly from the rest of the femoral shaft, and it's at basically a 90-degree angle to the rest of the femoral shaft. And that is because dinosaurs, as you can see in my avatar here, carry their legs essentially directly underneath the body like mammals do. So that's another big change, or a big difference there. Another big one is lizards lack the characteristic fenestrae of archosaurs. Fenestrae are just openings in the skull that are primarily there to save weight while maintaining strength, right? So archosaurs, characteristically, and this is true of birds too, have an opening between the orbit and the nasal opening, the nares, called the antorbital fenestra. That just literally means the window in front of the eyes. It's all just Latin. So lizards lack an antorbital fenestra. If you see an antorbital fenestra, you don't have a lizard. Sorry, you just don't. So that is another big difference there. Another one is that lizards have a parietal foramen. So a foramen is just another kind of hole in the skull, but it's not just for weight saving. It actually has some purpose. Some big tissue is passing through it or something like this, right? And this is to allow light to actually filter past their skin and actually contact their pineal gland in the brain, which helps lizards and related animals like sphenodonts actually coordinate their circadian rhythms. Dinosaurs lack a parietal foramen, and they regulated their circadian rhythms in other ways, primarily visually, because dinosaurs were and still are very visual animals. Their eyeballs are their primary sense, basically. Birds aren't great smellers. They aren't great tasters. They don't manipulate things with their hands. So they're not getting much sensory information from touch. They're almost entirely visual. And they can see into the ultraviolet, which is fun. So let's see, what are some other big things? Another one is that if you have a lizard, the two sides of the sacral area, like the hips, right? So the sacrum is not firmly connected to the spinal cord. Now, it is connected via, lots of ligaments and tissues and stuff, right? It's not like it's just swimming around in a pool of liquid or anything. But if you take a dinosaur, you'll actually see that the sacral vertebrae, that is the vertebrae between the hip bones, are actually fused to each other and to the hip bone, creating what's called a synsacrum. Lizards don't have that. Their sacral vertebrae are loose, and they're also lower in number. Dinosaurs always have 5 or more sacral vertebrae. Lizards always have fewer than that. So that is another rule for lizards versus dinosaurs. Let's see, what else do we have? Another big one is lizards, unlike other archosaurs, including dinosaurs, do not use the same muscle to retract the femur. So when you pull your femur back towards your tail or the back of you, different animals use different muscles. In archosaurs, the muscle used is the caudofemoralis longus, and that means it's a long muscle. That's why longus is in there. And caudofemoralis is a combination of the Latin terms for your thigh bone and tail. So what's actually happening is you're attaching a muscle from the proximal portion of the femur to the proximal portion of the tail vertebrae, and that is the main retractor for the femur in archosaurs. Not the case in lizards, which entirely lack a fourth trochanter, which is that attachment point for that particular muscle. There's another big difference. Let's see. Also, dinosaurs, and this isn't just archosaurs, this is specifically dinosaurs, have what's called an open or extensively perforate acetabulum. So your acetabulum is just the part of your hip where your femur goes in. And in most animals, lizards included, it's just a cup of bone. Like you could actually pour liquid into it and it would hold it if you were holding it up, facing up. In dinosaurs, if you tried to pour liquid through it, it would just fall through because it's just a ring. There's no bottom to it. So you can actually take a dinosaur pelvis and you can look from one hip socket through clear to the next one and out the other side if, it's just the bone. Lizards don't do that. They have a cup like you do and like all the other animals do. Let's see, lizards, this is a sort of on a continuum, because dinosaurs vary a bit in this, but lizards do not have significant pneumaticity in their skeletons, whereas dinosaurs have fairly extensive pneumaticity. Most of their long bones are infiltrated by air sacs that are connected to the main respiratory system. So essentially, their limbs have extensions of their lung in them. Lizards do not have that, although pterosaurs had even more extensive skeletal pneumaticity than dinosaurs do. So, I mean, it's basically all the differences between pterosaurs and lizards are mostly the same as between dinosaurs and lizards. Let's see. Lizards also have very different integument. So even in birds, the things that you think of as scales are actually stunted feathers, and you can tell embryologically that they're starting out as feathers because the characteristic shape of the feather follicle is there, as well as them having the complicated subset of beta keratins called phi keratins, which are specific to feathers. Birds have those in their scales. Lizards don't. They have the simpler forms of beta keratins in their scales. Also, they don't form scutes, whereas archosaurs do. So both birds and crocodilians will form scutes, which is it's a little bit complicated. And I don't really want to get into it right now, but there are in fact specific differences anatomically between scutes and scales. Birds lack actual scales in the sense of lizards, but they do have, like I said, stunted feathers that look like scales, and they have scutes, whereas lizards lack scutes entirely, and they have true scales, which, again, birds and other dinosaurs did not. I feel like I could just keep going and going and going, but I feel like at this point, I've basically, if you followed, you know very much that dinosaurs cannot be lizards, and they cannot especially just be big ol' lizards that grew up, like Kent Hovind says. There is no way to scale a lizard into a dinosaur. It just doesn't work on a fundamental level. It's kind of like saying that, oh, you know what the biggest difference between an elephant and a mouse is? It's scale. If you just let a mouse grow big enough, it would totally turn into an elephant. And you're just like, yeah, but like the trunk and the feet are different and the tail is different and like the teeth are completely... No. Mice are smaller. Therefore, elephants are big mice. That's essentially the kind of argument that Kent Hovind is going for when he says that before the flood, lizards just got big and that's how we get dinosaurs.
Dapper.
Yes.
Yeah.
Even though all of that excellent science is just absolutely fantastic to Maddie and myself and
I
everyone
zoned
else.
out, I'm sorry. I go to Zoom lectures a lot.
I get it. I just went through a lot of really technical anatomical stuff, and I tried to like make it easy, but like I get it.
But do you want me to give you a semi-trollish, like a pseudo-trollish, another way of going about it, like a shortcut
Absolutely.
for someone like Ken Hovind? All right. Since he uses the King James translation.
Ooh.
All right.
I'm already liking it.
This is to him the word of God, right?
Which is such a weird take, but okay.
Yeah. Open up Genesis 1 verse 20 and tell me what's weird about that verse. Now, when I say weird, I don't mean wrong. Just something should, like, when you're reading it, there's a word in there, or maybe a couple of prepositions in there that'll make you go, huh.
Okay, so I gotta be honest with you.
I'm pulling it up right now. I'm gonna read it.
Yeah, I was gonna say I have two Bibles.
Genesis 1:20.
I have two Bibles in reach of me, but one of them is a Greek New Testament, and the other one is an Arabic translation.
And I feel like neither of those are going to help us.
No.
So
you need a King James for this.
Okay, what's the King James say?
And God said, "Let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature that hath life, and fowl that may fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven."
So what's weird about that?
How do you fly in a firmament?
How do you fly in ice?
No. Don't worry
Okay.
about all that.
Oh.
How does it start? What's included in the creating here?
All the things that moveth?
Let the what?
The waters?
Let the waters bring forth
abundantly the moving creature that hath life. And then separately the fowl that may fly above the earth?
No, it includes and
fowl.
So the waters are bringing forth the fowl as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I kid you not, in the early church, Basil the Great, Augustine, even John Calvin, in John Calvin's commentary, he says, I can't make any sense of how birds derive from the oceans. And in this case, there could be this relationship between birds and fish.
Okay. Well, birds are fish. I will defend that one.
Yeah. Ultimately, Cambrian and yeah.
Yeah. Because you know what? Birds, here's my thing. If you think lungfish are fish, and you think that carp are fish, then guess what? So are birds. Because lungfish are far more closely related to birds than they are to carp. Sorry.
So newer translations sort of muddy that rendering. So it says, it kind of like puts the fowl creation like a separate thing, but that's purely because depending on the Hebrew Masoretic text, it's the Septuagint, the Greek Septuagint that the King James translators are using. So someone like with Ken Hovind just be like, hey, day 5, what's coming out of the oceans? Well, according to that, it says living creatures in the oceans and the fowl. And it's
I'll be honest,
there you go.
If you look at Christian history, I am not sure why it is that Christians tend to really like the Masoretic text versus the Septuagint, because the Masoretic text is a post-Christian text that was compiled for at least in part rhetorical counter-Christian reasons.
Yeah, that's half true. Yeah.
So that's why I said in part, right? Like there were a lot of motives, but one of them was, hey, the Septuagint is too easy for Christians to use to make their points. So let's change it. Oh, when we got David P. Neff coming in. Now that again, not the only reason or necessarily even the primary, but it was in there. That was part of the reason. David P. Neff.
This is why the Dead Sea Scrolls is so important.
Yeah. Hey, how you doing, Dapper Dino? Sorry I'm late.
Oh, don't worry about it, man. So we are probably not going to be on much longer, but I do want to know, what did you think of the debate, which I assume you watched?
I watched part of the debates, not the whole thing. But here's my 2 cents.
Heresy.
From what I've heard, is most of it I thought was pretty respectful from everyone, which is a plus. However,
I was here for that.
However, Mr. Ken Hovind, I am not going to call him doctor because he's not a doctor.
No, he is not.
He is preaching the same things that he's been preaching since before I was born. And he's never once even looked at some of the new science that has come up. And he's pretty much using out-of-date arguments that were wrong then and are even more wrong now. And at this point, you have to wonder if he knows he's wrong and he's deliberately lying, or if he's just that incompetent.
And real quick, we have a super chat for $5 from Carrie Bronson, who says, "Saw almost none of this and can't stay, but have money because it happened." Well, thank you. And of course, the Void looks back at you with gratitude for your donation. So you have made your donation to the Church of the Void, and it is much appreciated.
The Void looks back at you. That's hilarious.
Well, so Rob, do you know the story there?
No.
So I had a live stream and I forgot to hit stop streaming on OBS. And so after an hour or so, YouTube just figured that I was still trying to stream, but what was actually going out was a black screen with no audio. Because I had all of my audio inputs muted, and I didn't have anything on that scene displaying because the video that I was playing on it had ended. But I was in bed when this happened. And so like 5.5 hours later, I wake up to like a whole bunch of messages on Twitter and Facebook and whatnot being like, "Hey, you're live. Hey, did you know you're live?" And so I come and I've had a live stream on for over 5 hours of literally nothing but a black screen. And so that is the foundational event of the Church of the Void, because that's what I was streaming, just a void.
Right.
That being said, we did have a blast in the Cyborg chat, and you probably ended up making 10 out, like at least $100 just for sleeping.
It was about 75, but yeah, there was a significant amount of money that came in from people who just wanted to shove money at the Void, which apparently is me. So the Void appreciates it.
Excellent.
Yep. It was a lot of fun.
Well, became a symbol of hope that way.
But back to the back to the debate. At this point, Ted Hovind, I think, is just a flat out fraud and a flat out liar. Point blank.
Okay. I have had people make impassioned pleas against that position from people who disagree with Kent, and I go back and forth. At this point, I can't say that he's intellectually honest, but I have a hard time figuring out what he actually thinks is true to himself when he's not expressing these things to other people. Like, what is his actual internal mental state in regards to like the truth claims of creationism? And I don't know. I'm very confident that he knows he's lying about some of these things, but I think he might think that he's lying in service of getting people to believe things that he actually thinks are true.
Yeah, like lying for Jesus.
Yeah.
Basically saying, "Hey, evolution, is false, and here's a bunch of bullshit arguments, but I know my gullible audience isn't going to fact check me."
So yeah. Silver Harlow's question was: is the bounding volume of a hypersphere also the derivative of the enclosed space-time, which I know is kind of a problematic question in a way? So the answer is yes.
Yeah, the answer is yes. So we were having a fun chat in chat.
Oh,
that was so.
Yeah, someone got it actually. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant! Yeah, a sphere has a perfect it's the most energetically stable shape, right? So
I am familiar with
surface
this.
area is its derivative of its volume, but that's not true of other shapes. We were talking about that.
And is that true in n-dimensional space?
It should be true in n-dimensional
the analog.
space.
Well, the n-dimensional analog of the sphere remains the energetically. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, it intuitively makes sense, but I don't know nearly enough about geometry to actually assess that proposition.
I have to say, I couldn't bust out a proof for that right now, but that is true. I don't know, but that's a thing that I know is true. I'm not completely sure why I know it's true.
Yeah,
fair enough.
I sucked it. I was terrible at geometry and still am.
I remember I've tried to teach multiple people more than once simple things like the generic formula for internal angle sum of any polygon, which is not super complicated. But I still get people like, what? Why are you using an n? And I'm just like, okay, never mind.
Yeah. No, okay. The thing I wanted to bring up, until tonight, when Kent mentioned it, I was unaware that people lived at Dinosaur Adventureland.
Yeah.
And I'm a little concerned.
I can tell by the squeak in your voice.
I jumped pretty often.
You're missing out a lot that's happened, especially on that block. Even a young boy actually drowned. And
I knew that.
So after a quick super chat, we'll get into that a little bit. So Vandelian 1998 just put in for $1.99. Just got off work. Hope you kicked his, and then he put 4 periods. Yeah. So now
the extra periods for that void. So.
Yeah, there you go. Once again, the void looks back at you with satisfaction. So, I need to actually make like a 3D render of like a temple to the void or something. I'll do it.
Yeah,
make a whole channel called the Void.
The Void. I'll just rename my off-topic channel from Top Hats Off to the Void.
Dude, you should just have a a constant a perma live stream like music channels do.
Oh,
that's just like an eerie void music on a loop. It's just like the void looks back.
Oh my goodness. That might actually be worth doing. I will consider that. I might put that up as like a channel poll. But okay, so people living at Dinosaur Adventureland. So Kent Hovind will go around doing things, and this is based on reports of people who have lived there and since moved out. And he will do things like he will try to find people who have just got out of prison or who are homeless or whatever, and offer them room and board, no pay, if they live and work at Dinosaur Adventureland and go to his Bible studies.
That sounds very... I'm going to drop an F-bomb here. Fucked up.
Oh, that's the second one! David, you now owe me a $10 super chat, man.
Oh, man. I owe you a $10 super chat.
I hope it was worth it. And that doesn't even go to the void. That just goes to me.
I'm very pro... yes, let's find ways to integrate marginalized people, specifically the unhoused or people who were just released from prison. They often find it very difficult to help me with the word.
Just get employed, reintegrate. Actually, that was
reintegrate into society.
I actually had a conversation about that with Logical, Probable, Plausible, and it was one of the few areas where we actually managed to agree. Is we actually had a really good thing. We're like, it is way too difficult for people who just got out of prison to just get any kind of life back. So keep going. Sorry.
So on the one hand,
you just got a $10.
Right. Your debt has been paid off.
I stole the one, Neff. I'm sorry.
and I wasn't around to hear it.
Yeah, I did that earlier in the stream.
So what were you saying about reintegrating and Dinosaur Adventureland?
So on the one hand, I'm very pro, things that work to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, because those groups of people have so much trouble reintegrating into society, right? They are, it's very easy to abuse those populations, right? And so it's very common to see organizations that are, on paper, they're supposed to be, say, helping people recently out of prison get jobs and find employment and do things like that. But in actuality, they're labor is being taken advantage of.
Yeah.
And same with the unhoused population. And so it does make me very angry to see someone specifically in the name of Christian charity to knowingly and intentionally abuse and take advantage of already deeply marginalized population.
Yeah.
He should remain locked up. That's my opinion.
I'm sorry.
My opinion might sound harsh and unchristlike, but I reckon he should still remain locked up. I hold no reservations in saying that.
We have a $5 super chat.
I'm thinking bigger picture here, and
we have a $5 super chat that I can't talk from Silver Harlow, who says, "Science side, good on you for trying to get Kent to understand the dynamics of a system can change after some of the energy has been used up." Yeah, you would think that would be a pretty basic thing, but that can apparently go over Kent Hovind's head somehow. I don't know.
Maybe he needed a pizza and a nap, and then we could go back at it.
Well, no, what he needs is a pizza and one of those massages he gets at Dinosaur Adventureland from the young woman who is living there.
Oh,
yeah,
is that a real
that's
thing?
a real thing.
All right, team, I'm going to put on a different hat for a second. Hi, I'm Maddie that ran Her Command Sexual Assault Prevention and Response Program. So April, if you were unaware, is Sexual Assault Awareness Month. In the United States, 1 in 5 women and 1 in 33 men are victims of attempted or completed rape. Sorry, I was thinking if I could say that on the channel and you'd be monetized, and then I decided
it's iffy, but it's an important topic, so go for it.
Yeah. Those are roughly equivalent with other Western countries in terms of statistics. The overwhelming majority, only 1 in 5 individuals who have ever been sexually assaulted ever report it to anyone ever. And yeah, 1 in 5 women, team. And if you want to broaden that from attempted or completed rape to sexual assault in general, I know that the latest stat out of the UK is that 97% of women have been sexually assaulted. And I don't know, that holds up with my friend group.
I also know a fair few men who've been sexually assaulted, and almost none of whom have ever reported outside of their friend group.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you know, I saw something that is almost perfectly sums your statistics up perfectly. Most women know another woman that were sexually assaulted, but men don't know the other men that actually committed these acts. Something like that.
Yeah, and the reason for that is perpetrator, something like it's single digits percentage of people who perpetrate sexual assaults will ever spend a day in jail, right? Because these types of crimes are underreported. When they are reported, they're often not believed, and they're also notoriously difficult to prosecute, right?
Yeah. And when they are believed and prosecuted, many of them just hate plea deals. So
and also it's one of the crimes that unfortunately is inherently hard to provide hard evidence for.
Physical evidence for. Yeah. It's true, especially because oftentimes individuals who have been assaulted need time to process what has happened to them and then reach out to get help. And in the time that they need to understand what happened to them, oftentimes the physical evidence dissipates.
Yeah.
So if that is the thing you've ever dealt with here in the States, RAIN is an excellent network. It's the Rape and Incest National Network. They have a 24-hour toll-free hotline. You can talk to someone. They also have a chat option on their website, so you can just type and talk with someone that way. It's completely confidential. And they also have resources on, I'm sorry, I don't know international resources off the top of my head. But RAIN, RAINN, RA.
And Maddie, make sure you get me all the information for that, and I will make sure to add it to the description.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if there's instances of abuse of power, which certainly can blur consent, that's absolutely not okay. And I'm just, if you have ever been sexually assaulted, I'm here to say that I believe you, and it can get better. So let me find some resources,
and those will be added.
This is something that I care about deeply.
Yeah, and actually, when it comes to Kent, I'm actually at one point on record saying I don't.
Just quickly, I'm just gonna head out.
Oh, okay, bye, Rob. Thank you very much for coming by. It was great to talk to you.
Rob.
And
keep in touch on Twitter now that we got that little message thing going.
Yeah, absolutely. And if it's something similar to this, I mean, you can stop by. And if you were ever a Young Earth creationist, I don't know if you ever were, but if you were, I would be open to having a Leaving Young Earth Creationism interview with you.
Yeah, sure. I would actually be interested in that because I was Young Earth creationist.
Okay. Well, hey, I mean, that's one of the things I do on Saturdays. So, which I guess for Rob is going to be Sunday. So, sorry about that, Rob.
I'm free. I'm almost always free Saturdays.
All right. Well, I will get with both of you about that. But one of the things I had said about Kent Hovind a while back was that I hadn't heard very many stories about sexual impropriety from him. But now that he's on Mrs. Hovind 4 and getting massages from the young women at Dinosaur Adventureland, I don't think I can continue to make that claim, because now it's at the very least iffy. Now, can you have a non-sexy massage for a young woman who lives at your compound? Yes, you can. Is it a little weird that he can go through wives in a few months and always have one in the wings? Also, yes. And real quick, we have a super chat, and we're going to go back to Maddie. Vandali1998 says for $4.99, and unfortunately, there have been false claims too, so when real ones happen, the victims can't get help because people are skeptical. That also, yeah, look, do not falsely report any kind of sexual crime, because the only person, well, there's two groups of people you're primarily hurting. First, you're hurting the poor person who didn't do anything to you. That's not okay. And second, you're also hurting everyone who was actually a victim.
And the other thing to remember is that of all violent crimes, sexual assault has the lowest instance of false reporting. So if someone, we have an instinct, which is, and the instinct, if someone reports a sexual assault, is to say, but did that really happen, right? And I would really, really encourage you, if someone trusts you enough to share that with you, I would really encourage you to be willing to hold the dichotomy in your mind of, I believe this person who has been harmed, and any alleged perpetrator is innocent until proven guilty, right?
Yeah.
You can hold that dichotomy in your brain.
It's not always easy, but you can.
You can. And the most important thing in the moment, if someone discloses to you, is to believe them, because so often sexual assault victims are not believed. And again, it's statistically, and this is from FBI statistics, has the lowest instance of false reporting of any violent crime. It's 1 or 2%, right? So if someone has told you that they've been a victim of sexual assault, chances are they're telling the truth.
Yep. And
also chances are that the person that assaulted them is someone that they know, and so it's probably somebody that you know.
Yeah, and
oh, and hey, LPP was here, and so LPP, I just wanted to give you props, because the one time we really had an actual interaction that was like voice to voice, the big thing that we agreed on, which we've also talked about here, is the degree to which former convicts get a raw deal in the US and how completely not okay it is. And I want to commend you for being someone who has, at least, I mean, I have no reason to doubt you, who has gone out of your way to help people in that situation get back on their feet. That is a really big deal. And as much as we disagree on a lot of things, if you're doing that out there, you're definitely making a positive impact on those people's lives. So I know that we are often on opposite sides of things, and there's a lot of vitriol sometimes, but I want to give you props for being someone who actually is taking his own time and energy and resources and pouring it into helping someone who has been out of prison and as a result has a hard time making it, really. So props to you, LPP, on that one. Now, granted, we get off that topic. I have plenty of criticisms, but on that one, yeah, I have good things to say.
And I will echo that as well.
Yep. Which is one of the things I want to try to, when we can, emphasize the things where we have some commonality, because a lot of times I feel like these conversations surrounding creation evolution can become more combative than they really should be, which is something I try to avoid. I try not to be overly combative. I feel like I can be a bit snarky, I'll admit, right? Like my videos, you know, if I made a video about you, there's a fair chance that I've needled at you a bit. But I hope that it comes across as being primarily in good fun, while also trying to pick apart the arguments. But I also recognize that I can be sometimes more vitriolic than I would like, and I don't think it helps out a whole lot, even though it can be hard to avoid. Sorry, David, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I did want to echo what you said about John there. Definitely want to give credit where credit is due, and to give him big props for that. Trying to think what else to say. But I'd definitely be interested in doing a little bit of a one-on-one chat about leaving longer creationism. I would the honor to be on the stream talking about that.
All right. Well, so it sounds like I've got a few people who I can coordinate with to have leaving our Earth Creationism chat. I don't think that there will be one this week. I mean, quite frankly, I've already put out more content this week than I usually do. So I'm kind of feeling like maybe I don't need to have something on Saturday. Also, I am probably doing some D&D stuff either tomorrow or Saturday. Well, I'm definitely doing stuff tomorrow that's D&D, but I might be doing additional D&D stuff. Which, Maddie, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah.
By the way, I'm sorry, real quick. I was actually thinking of maybe starting a virtual D&D for us and anyone else who wants to join. Would you guys be interested in that?
Depending on when that happens, I am interested. But Maddie will be in the next few weeks or so, probably, I imagine, right?
Yeah.
We'll be doing a session 1, which I think we're going to stream. We're not sure what channel we're going to stream it to. It might be my off-topic channel. It might be Maddie's channel. I think those are the two big options. I'm open to having it streamed to Chesh's channel too, because she's got an audience there. But we're going to be doing a D&D campaign, and I will be there. Ben Hovind will be there. Cheshire Vic will be there. TD Lane, Erica, and her fiance Luke, I believe, will also be there. So that's going to be
the plan.
Yeah, and of course Maddie is going to be our DM.
Yeah, I'm in a DM. So when I DM, be nice, because I have like 3 systems in my head. The other game I GM is in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, and I play in a Pathfinder 1st Edition
so
game.
many rules.
So I'm gonna mess up a 5th Edition rule, a D&D 5th Edition rule at some point. I'm so sorry in advance.
Okay, so here's a little anecdote. So one of my very good friends, I met because a mutual friend of ours suggested her for a D&D game while we were in college as a player. So at one point, she and I were sitting in the cafeteria thing. I don't know, they had some word for it. I don't remember. It doesn't matter. I was going to say mess hall, but that's obviously wrong. Anyway, so one of her friends comes and sits down with us as we're eating lunch. And he says, "Oh, hey, how do you know this person?" I said, "Oh, I was her dungeon master," and so we get this really weird look, and I'm like, "What's going on?" I'm like, "Oh, I know what he's saying." I was like, "No, Dungeons and Dragons. Let's clear this up." But yeah. So yeah, that was a thing that happened. So I think we're gonna probably close up pretty soon. So David, do you have anything coming up on your channel that you want to plug?
No, not as I know. I might do open mic, just open topic tomorrow on my channel. Don't know what's going on with you guys, but everyone's welcome to join. It'll probably be like at 9 o'clock. So yeah, open mic on my channel tomorrow at 9 o'clock.
Okay. And Maddie, what do you have to plug before we go on to my channel news and then we just get out of here?
Absolutely. So let's see. Sunday, we're going to have a new climate dynamics video. We're talking about paleoclimate.
Nice.
I am not done talking about mollusks. So even more mollusks.
And maybe you can talk about brachiopods next time.
Maybe.
Yeah,
and then I'm doing like basically on my channel, the current normal schedule is like a Sunday. I've got like a scripted short, like 10-ish minutes, like lecture-ish explainer science video. And then Wednesdays is a more casual, fun, like live stream, or sometimes I've pre-recorded it and premiere it because of PhD schedule stuff, but something a little more relaxed. So on this upcoming Wednesday, I haven't decided. I have a pre-recorded video about the weather of Barovia. So I might just release that, or I might do a live stream.
Wait, like from The Curse of Strahd, Barovia?
Yeah, absolutely. Because Gondorton's Guide to Ravenloft is coming out soon, and I wanted to do an analysis of the climate and weather of Barovia, because I'm this nerd.
I mean, okay.
Yeah, that's my channel.
Fair enough. So let's see. Here on my channel, I have coming up. So I don't actually have anything planned for Saturday. There's a small chance that could change, but Probably not, guys. I'm probably going to try to take at least a couple days off. Let's see. So this Tuesday is going to be a cryptid tier list. And I'm going to get with Erica as to whether or not, because we did push Eric with Erica because she was busy helping out family. So we're going to see if she wants to just not have one this month, or if she wants to have one on the next available Tuesday, or what. So I'm not sure what's going to happen that next Tuesday, but then I'm hoping that next Thursday, well, I know next Thursday is going to be a response to a CMI article on creation.com that I did, where, by the way, Hovind does the narration for the article. So if you are a fan of hearing Hovind, there you go. And Guts of Gibbon, I see you in the chat, so we need to get together and talk about whether or not you want to do a Eric with Erica week after next, or no. I'm okay with either one. So then let's see. Thursday after that should be another update to the Speculative Evolution project. So yeah, there you go. And then hopefully that Saturday, I now might actually have a Leaving Young Earth Creationism lined up. So that should be fun. I like those. And of course, friend of the channel, RJ Downer, also likes those because he collects data from them, because he's trying to collect as much data as he can on people who've left Young Earth Creationism. And yeah, that's sorry, that's basically it for the channel. And so I'm going to show off my end credits. I'll talk to all you guys later. Thank you very much, everyone who watched. Thank you especially to those of you who super chatted. The Void has accepted your offerings. I'll talk to you later. I want to take a little time to thank my channel members and patrons, especially those pledging $20 or more. Bob Knob, Bent Hovind, Ian Chen, Chris Love, Sphincter of Doom, The Venerable Bead, Patrick Dennis, and Res Instance. YouTube is a very volatile platform, what with fraudulent copyright claims, demonetization, and the ever-decreasing share of ad revenue on the platform. It is very hard to rely on YouTube. My members and patrons help keep this channel going, and without them, the channel wouldn't exist. If you'd like to join my Patreon, the link is in the description, and if you'd like to become a channel member, that link is below the video. It's the join button here on YouTube. Either way, you'll get access to early videos, an exclusive Discord server, and if you pledge enough, 3D assets you can use in your own projects.